Hi, I'm Bridget Borel, founder of the Pearl Financial Planning in Annapolis, Maryland, and my unexpected hobby is stand-up paddleboarding.
Welcome to Unexpected Hobbies of Financial Advisors, the podcast where we interview fellow financial advisors about their pursuits and pastimes beyond their professional persona, some of which may be surprising to their colleagues and clients. We're interested in what makes them tick and how their unexpected hobbies might or might not relate to their everyday lives. Here's our discussion with this week's guest. Welcome to the Unexpected Hobbies of Financial Advisors podcast. I'm Brian Wright with Fiduciary CFO, alongside my co-host and fellow financial advisor, Joshua Walker.
It is my privilege to be here today.
We're glad you are, Joshua, because we've got a good one today. Boy, do we ever. Joining us today is Bridget Borel. She's the owner of the Pearl Financial Planning, a firm that specializes in divorcees who are near or at retirement. That's a big group, I bet. But it keeps her real busy. Yeah.
Yep.
Bridget's located in Annapolis, Maryland. Oh, God's country right there.
It is
Welcome,
beautiful.
Bridget. We're excited
you.
for you to talk to us about
Thank
your
you.
unexpected hobby.
Thanks for inviting me.
So, how does one get into stand-up paddleboarding?
Well, I can tell you how I got into it. I come from a Navy family. My dad was in the Navy and the Air Force. I was formerly married to a naval officer, and Annapolis is very much a Navy town. It's home of the United States Naval Academy, and there's lots of water around here. So paired with my military family background, I got involved with a veteran support organization called Team Red, White, and Blue, or Team RWB. And they do a lot of sort of bringing veterans and active duty military and civilians together for both physical activity and social events. And the chapter here did a lot of paddleboarding in the summer. And so through that group, I decided to try it out and just absolutely loved it. Loved being out on the water and, moving under my own power as opposed to say power boating or something like that. And just kind of grew my interest from there, got into some racing and just training and exploring and paddling wherever I can.
So this wasn't something that your parents plunked you in on a board when you were 2 and could barely float. This is something you came to as an adult late in life.
No, there was definitely no paddleboarding where I grew up in Louisiana at the time.
Because gators.
I'm assuming the word. Well, gators, they aren't really that aggressive, honestly. I've been around
good.
many a gator in my time, and they're just okay. There's actually in my hometown, there's a college campus, the University of Louisiana Lafayette, and there's a swamp on campus, and there are gators in the swamp.
Okay.
So.
And then where you are currently in the Annapolis area, no predators that you have to worry about when you're in the water.
No gators. Biggest thing you have to worry about usually is, as far as critters are concerned, is jellyfish. And we're, getting to the time of year where we see them, and that'll go into September probably. So it's optimal to not fall in, but yeah, no big predators here.
Okay. And is it I would assume you're standing up, right? I just would figure that falling in is a routine occurrence.
Yes. So there are lots of different types of boards. So usually if someone's going kind of casually paddling, say if they're on vacation and they're just looking for something fun to do, fun excursion, those boards are pretty wide and stable and heavy. So they're meant to, sort of be comfortable and not challenge your balance too much. Whereas once you get into more like a racing board, those boards become longer and a lot narrower and a lot lighter. And they're much more difficult to keep your balance on. So it really sort of depends what kind of board you're on and what you're trying to do.
And I suppose it's the same for getting back on once you've fallen off, that the broad ones are a little more easy to wrangle up on. Or is that a skill thing, not a board thing?
You know,
I don't know. I don't
I
fall
had never
off.
thought about that per se. But it is, I would say that is something that as a safety precaution, that our like my paddleboard groups that I'm involved in, we do like to have people practice. It's called self-rescue, where, you got off your board and how do you get back on? So you want to practice that when you're not in a stressful situation, because, water conditions can vary greatly, even within a 1 hour period of paddling. And you don't want to have to be learning how to right yourself onto your board when you're scared and nervous about the conditions.
What makes for optimal conditions? Where the water is and the condition of the water itself.
So wind is a big one. The windier it is, just the more challenging and potentially dangerous of conditions. Current is another one. And of course, lightning. Don't want to ever be on the water if there's lightning. So, always kind of looking at those things. There's also boat traffic you have to consider, specifically power boaters and maybe jet skiers. Any kind of powered vessel, it's going to create a wake that, creates a lot more chop for you to paddle through and keep your balance on. And for the most part, I would say boaters are pretty courteous to paddlers around here. But I generally try to paddle earlier in the morning when there's going to be less boat traffic, or if it's later in the day, go to a body of water where it's just quieter as far as boat traffic is concerned.
Is that really what you want? Is just really calm, really, really calm water?
Well, for an easier paddle, yes. But if you are training for a race, you want to get a variety of conditions, because, races can be in lots of different bodies of water. It could be on a super flat, quiet creek, or it can be, I've done a race on the Chesapeake Bay, where, the conditions were such that I kind of felt like I was in the ocean. So,
Open water.
yeah, big open water, big waves, big chop. So, definitely if you're wanting to expand your paddling horizons, it's good to get into a variety of water conditions to better understand, sort of how to read the water, how it's moving, and, how you're going to need to adjust your stroke or your stance to kind of account for that.
How big are the boards, like weight, dimensions, and what are they made out of?
I'm not good with the weight, but
Is it the sort of thing that one person can fling on top of the car, or is that too
yeah,
big?
generally. So the more recreational boards tend to be heavier. They may be, I'm going to say, maybe around 50 pounds, 60 pounds.
Okay.
So maybe not so easy to throw on top of a car, but certainly possible. There's a lot of inflatable boards of varying widths and lengths. So I would say the recreational boards, like the first board that I bought was actually a rental board from a local board shop. At the end of their season, they sell a bunch of their rental fleet. And so that board, I believe, was about 12 feet long. It might have been 10, actually, and probably about 33, 36 inches wide.
Okay.
And then my first race board I bought was 14 feet long and 23 and a half inches wide. That was just too skinny. So usually race boards are 14 feet. There's another class that's 12 and a half. So that's the board I have now is 12 and a half feet. long and 25 inches wide. So
And does that fit in like a garage at home, or do you have to find some sort of special way to stash it?
you can, yeah, if you have a garage, you should be able to fit in there. A lot of people have racks that they're able to store them on outside. Like if they have to live on the water or if their community, there's a lot of communities with water access in Annapolis. So a lot of them have racks built for the community to use for kayaks and canoes and boards. So generally you want to protect them from the sun. So if you can cover them or put them in a bag while they're outside, that's ideal, or keep them in the shade at least.
And you mentioned inflatable. Are they meant to be rigid and sturdy? Because I think inflatable and I think pool raft and
Right.
you can't even stand on those.
You'd be surprised. They can be really sturdy if you get enough pressure in them. The I would say the advantage of having an inflatable board is ease of transport and storage. So let's say like I know a paddler who lives in Washington, D.C., and she doesn't have an easy way to store a hard board. So she keeps an inflatable board that she's able to, deflate when she's done paddling and bring it inside. Or if you're, traveling by plane or by car and you just don't want to deal with taking a board on top of your car, because that can be a little challenging itself.
Yeah.
Just the drive and making sure your board is properly secured. So
They're
just
meant
kind of
to be hydrodynamic, so then they're also aerodynamic as well. You don't want to be generating lift on the top of your vehicle.
right, yeah.
Okay. And can they collapse down to like, I'm going to throw this in a backpack and put it in carry-on, or is it not that?
Not really that small.
Okay. Okay.
If you're familiar with, I'm going to call them sea bags just because I have a Navy background, but sort of the large bags that military personnel will carry, like a giant
Oh,
duffel bag.
a super
It's about
duffel.
that size.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And so how many different boards have you cycled through over the course of, you mentioned acquiring a couple. Is this the sort of thing that everybody's always like a musical instrument? You're always looking for your next bass, or is it you're all in love
Yeah.
with one and it's your soulmate board?
It is. Right now I have four. So I have the very first board I bought, that rental, which I kind of keep on hand for times when I, for example, want to go out on the bay and it's really choppy. I don't necessarily want to be on my skinny race board. Or if I have someone going with me who's unfamiliar with racing or with paddleboarding, it's a little bit easier for them to use that. And I do have two inflatable boards, which I bought during COVID, thinking that my kids would go out with me, but they didn't really. So I'm looking to unload those.
Is it the sort of thing that it's a bad idea to do on your own, that you really need to have a buddy with you? Or does it, I guess it depends on where you're going. You wouldn't want to cross the
Right.
bay by yourself, but if you're just going
No,
on a quick loop.
Very few
Okay.
people actually go across the bay, but no. I mean, even in sort of more secure, protected areas. I rarely go out by myself. But if I do, then I let someone know exactly where I'm going to be and when I think I'm going to be back. And I almost always have some sort of GPS device with me, either phone or now I have an Apple Watch for location, but also communication
Yeah.
purposes. But there are certainly people who go paddling by themselves. They're just a little braver than I am.
Just
And
alone
probably,
with their thoughts.
well, I mean, some people prefer to do that. I like the social aspect of it as well. So most of my paddling I do with a group. When I decided I wanted to train for a race, I got involved with a group called Chesapeake. So Chesapeake is spelled with an A between the S and the P, but to play on the SUP acronym, they put the U in there. So it's a group that has some. There's a business aspect where there are people who do coaching and training and classes and sometimes race organization. But there's also a community aspect of it. So in the summer, there's Wednesday night race league where different people will host. A lot of people in the group either live on the water themselves or their community has access to the water. And so they're able to set up a race course, generally a 3-mile race course. And we all meet up at an appointed time on a Wednesday and do the race and then have a potluck afterward. And it's a ton of fun. And getting back to your question about, always kind of looking for the next best board. A group like that is a great chance to try out different equipment and gear because it definitely is a sport where your gear can make a huge difference.
Yeah.
So like right now, I really want to upgrade my paddle. I have just a not fancy paddle at all, and I want to get one that's lighter. And since it is an endurance sport, it can, just a few ounces less in your paddle can make a big difference as far as, how much.
Shoulder strain and fatigue.
Yeah, fatigue over time, over, thousands of strokes in a 3-mile course.
Yeah. So what's the difference between a paddle and an oar? Because I'm thinking like I've got a canoe in the family background. I'm sure that's not what
Right.
you're using. So what's the difference? How are yours
No, I don't
fancier?
really know, honestly. But we never haul them oars, so there's that.
But oarboard has such a ring to it. You could have been the oarboarders.
Right.
Is it the hand on one side and the actual paddle on the other? Is there a paddle like on both sides? Like right, and one's a paddle and one's an
No,
oar has
so
like a.
if you think of the paddle standing upright with the shaft going up and down, there's a handle at the top and then the paddle at the bottom. And you do want it to be fitted to you for your height and your arm length. So there are ways to either there are adjustable paddles, which is what I have, or if you get one that isn't adjustable, they can be cut down to size. Because if you have one that's too long, it can be really bad on your shoulders.
Yeah. And if weight is a priority, then these things are probably hollow carbon fiber, I'm guessing.
Yeah, the nice ones are.
The nice ones. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you talk about these, with the competitions, the races are 3 miles long. How long does a race take?
I can tell you
Depends how windy it is. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, even on the same body of water and the same course on a different day or different time of day, the conditions can be outrageously different. But generally, the races I've seen, people who are winning the race are finishing around the 30-minute mark. I personally finished closer to 45 minutes or an hour, depending on the conditions. But it's kind of a nice range. There's it doesn't seem to be super age or gender skewed. It's low impact, so it's not putting a lot of stress on joints. As long as take care of your
Good posture.
shoulder
good form.
ergonomics, right? Yeah.
How young? Are you going to get kids out there doing as part of a family activity and then kids races? Is it
Yeah,
age grouped?
definitely. So the larger races will generally have like a kids category or kids race that's, maybe it's, I don't know, half a mile or so, or like a 1 mile fun run sort of event. But most of them aren't that big, really.
Here
But
in Indianapolis.
people definitely get their kids out on paddleboard. It's a great family activity.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. Here in Indianapolis, we got our motor speedway, and it's just a big oval, 4 turns. But other courses that they go to are 20 turns, chicanes, all twisting and turning. Are your courses like out and back again, or is it complicated and many turns?
That's up to the race organizers.
All
It's
the above.
Kind of, yeah, whatever they want to do. And I think that's one of the things that's interesting about the Wednesday night race leagues is that it provides the opportunity to really practice a particular skill or a particular type of course. So there was one time where I think it was last year, someone, people were talking about wanting to practice their buoy turns, which is, you're turning around a buoy on a course. And it can get kind of congested if there's a lot of people trying to get there and around at the same time. So it can be tricky navigating even on your own. But once you add a few other people in there, everybody's wanting to not knock into anyone else, but, still keep going. And
You don't want to knock
have
into
an
other
efficient
people.
turn.
You're not.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, because it's, you're likely to fall in. And if you fall in,
And that's not fair play.
well, I mean, definitely you wouldn't, it would not be fair play to intentionally run into someone, but
Okay.
definitely boards come up against each other. The best thing to do in that case, if you do feel like you're gonna run into someone, is to just keep going forward. And that if you try to push someone away sideways laterally, they're more likely to fall, and that could be pretty dangerous in that sort of instance.
Yeah. I guess you see on TV the Tour de France situation where they're all turning, and all of a sudden you got 50 guys on the ground, and it's bad. So yeah,
Yeah, and it really slows you down.
this impedes the progress to be one with the pavement. So how long have you been doing this?
Oh, I think I first started paddling, let's see, probably not quite 10 years ago. And then again, with that group I mentioned, Team RWB, volunteered at the Bay Bridge Paddle, which is a race that's on the Chesapeake Bay. And I just thought, oh my gosh, this is so cool. I want to do that. And got into race training. Guess that would have been 2021.
Okay, that was going to be the follow-up. When did you and how did you decide to take the turn towards the competitive angle?
So when I went to, when I was volunteering on shore at the Bay Bridge Paddle, it was just such a fun event. I had done other race events like running races or triathlons, and then just enjoyed the feel. It's almost like a big party, very social and outdoors. And I don't know, I always have enjoyed being on the water. Grew up near the water. I'm a Pisces. I don't know if that has anything to do with it. So being at that event, it just looked like so fun. And it was just a physical challenge I wanted to take on. So started working toward it.
So you said you were an athlete before this new hobby. Do you find that the people who are doing paddleboarding have, there's a tendency that they're former something else, former triathletes or former surfers, or is this kind of like a progression, like the way pickleball is, like for tennis players who've, not had all the orthopedic surgery that they probably should? Is this a progression of some other, common athlete or common other sport?
I don't know that there's like one main type of sport that people come from for paddleboarding. Probably a good transfer of skills would be just any endurance sport, where you're going at whatever it is for well over 30 minutes. It's not like a big burst of activity. It is sustained. But yeah, definitely tons of people who were athletes and, some sport over time. There's a ton of crossover with people who surf, people who do more like outrigger canoe paddling, just anybody who loves being on the water. I think if there was a single common thread, I would say that's it. Some sort of affection for the water and being outside.
Is there a pro level? Like, can
Yeah,
people
how-
go can people go pro in this? Is there a series out there of people that are
Yeah.
just fantastic at this?
Yeah. So one woman who comes to mind is her name's Fiona Wild. And I think what's particularly interesting about her is that she has type 1 diabetes. So she has to be super careful with her nutrition in particular.
Yeah.
But, it's just a pretty significant health challenge for anyone, but definitely for someone who is purposefully stressing their body. But she's up in, I think, Oregon. And it's really cool to just like watch her videos and, maybe one day I'll take one of her workshops. But yeah, there are pros, and they are amazing to see in person. I went to a race in North Carolina called the Carolina Cup, and I ended up not racing in that one because I broke my foot 6 days before, which is
Oh.
really disappointing. But there was a big group of us from Maryland who went down together, and getting to see the and there were, I think, 3 different race lengths for that event, and that was like almost a week long sort of festival of paddling. But there was like a 3 mile and a 5 mile and a 13 mile, which went onto the ocean as well.
Wow.
I'm not there, but
13
watching the
miles?
pros
Ooh.
come in from the ocean, that was super impressive.
Yeah. And if a kid grows up in a paddleboarding family, takes to it like a duck to water and is good at it, is that the sort of thing they can do at the Division 1 level, or is it not a college athletic
Not
thing?
that I know of. I
Not
don't
yet.
think I don't think it's a college varsity sport.
Well, that
But who
leads
knows,
to then
one
my
day.
question is like, when are the Olympics going to come calling? I mean, they're breakdancing now. Like, stand-up paddleboard seems like a
Right.
Do they?
shorter
Did they?
lane.
Were
Did
they
they
doing this
have
on the Seine last
paddleboarding?
week?
I don't think so. I don't think it's an Olympic sport. I'm bad at being aware
assumed
of
it's
those
not,
things,
but-
honestly.
I don't know.
Surely NBC would have been flogging that on the Seine if there was paddleboarding, but
Right.
Not
No,
yet.
I don't
Maybe in
think there
LA.
is. I mean, there's definitely
out to Catalina and back.
it's being breeding. It's being considered possibly making its debut at the 2028 Los Angeles Games.
There you go.
So we'll
Excellent.
see.
All right, there's your goal. Now you hear
Yeah,
you need
right.
you need a BHAG. We've identified it on this podcast.
I've got 4 years. I can make it.
Come on, kids. That's right. Okay, so are there? You mentioned any special memories? I mean, you talked about the shore bridge, the Bay Bridge event. Any other special memories that you remember fondly looking back on, either personally or socially, that have come out of this hobby?
Sure. So being in the paddling community, and involved with a veterans group kind of segued me into a nonprofit called Live Water Foundation. And I served on the board there for a while. And our mission with Live Water was basically to connect veterans and underprivileged youth with water activities. So there was paddling as well as for the youth, more like water safety and swimming lessons involved.
Sure. Yeah.
So that was a really cool experience. And a couple of things I remember specifically through serving on the board. One time I was in charge of leading a group. I think it was Wounded Warrior Foundation who had come out. And Annapolis is the state capital of Maryland. And so I'm like getting my group, and it was a pretty big group. And I had staff from the paddle shop we're with helping out too. But just sort of like logistically making sure, because there are a lot of people who haven't paddled before. So making sure everybody's comfortable and has the gear they need and getting on the water and that they know not to go past a certain point, etc. And then I hear someone saying, "Oh, the governor is going to be here in 10 minutes." And I was like, and he's a I don't know if you know, Westmore is an Army veteran. So I
Oh,
was a little
yeah.
confused and thought he was joining our group, but apparently he actually gets out and paddles for his own recreation and exercise on a regular basis. But sure enough, Governor Moore showed up and with his security detail out on the water with us, and it was cool because he just happened to show up with another veteran group, and they appreciated getting to chat with him and trade some Army stories, and yeah. So one of the pictures I will share is with Governor
The
Moore with a
governor.
group of paddlers. Yeah. So
So
that was kind of fun.
I remember pictures of President Clinton with his detail jogging, and then President
Yeah.
Bush with his detail cycling. Were there? Does this guy have to run around with his crew of
Yeah,
detail that are all
I mean,
paddlers?
there were security detail paddling with him. Yeah, it was kind of funny. But then also with that group, we had a fundraiser, a big luau sort of gala event, and one of the groups that we took out paddling were veterans and active duty members who were going through rehab at local military hospitals. And some of them had, pretty significant injuries, had amputations or traumatic brain injury, or just, something that really changed the trajectory of their life.
Yeah, you're not far from Walter Reed, right? That's
Correct.
yeah. Okay.
Correct. So there was a woman who had been out paddling with us over several years. She gave up and kind of gave a testimonial at the luau. And, to look at her now, she's still young and healthy looking and fit. And she kind of gave her story about how, she was really sort of not mobile at all for a period of time due to her injuries and surgery and whatnot, and how she was grateful for the physical therapy she had at the hospital, but when the group came out to Annapolis to paddle, it was like her world just opened up again, and like it was healing to her spirit as well as her body. So that was just, I mean, I'm getting chills just talking about it right now. So that was really cool to be involved with that and hear her story and get to know her and other veterans like that.
And I'm guessing that's much more the social community aspect in addition to the physical exertion aspect. So to be outside,
Well, I
fresh
think,
air with
yeah.
people, being active, all of the above, that leads to
Right.
the
And I think
direction of a
especially
positive outcome.
with veterans and military members, they view themselves as athletic and taking on significant physical challenges. And so when they're, essentially some of them are living at the hospital for months, if not longer.
Indefinitely. Yeah.
Yeah. Then that can just erode their sense of self. So to get back to something that makes them feel like more of themselves and get away from the hospital. So,
Being a patient. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Is this the sort of activity you talked about, the many, many different groups that you've been able to do this with? Is it the kind of thing you can share with colleagues and clients as well? Or is it, that's just the separate thing that she does? We support her, but we don't actually go and get wet.
Right. I mean, it's definitely something I can. I have not done a client event yet with it because it is a little more athletic, but I would like to. So
Right.
it's the wheels are turning on how to do that. And colleagues, it just sort of depends, whether they're up for it or not. I will bring anyone paddleboarding who wants to go.
I'm guessing just from the parts of the body that get used, the feet are your connection with the board, and you're doing tons of stuff with your shoulders, and you got to take care of your hands. But a vast amount of core and balance that just to
yeah.
stay upright.
I think there's a base level of balance. And it's really a full body workout because I think to just look at it from afar, it looks like an upper body or arm workout. But if you're using proper stroke technique, you're sort of hinging your hips and extending your arms out straight. You want the shaft of the paddle sort of upright and the blade entering sort of like at 90 degrees to your board.
Yeah.
So you want to be efficient, and you're kind of, when you stand up, then the board is almost being pulled forward by your feet, if that makes sense.
Yes.
It's hard to
Because your
explain
center of
without actually
gravity.
being on a board.
Right, yeah, you got the paddle anchored in the water, and your center of gravity is moving against the paddle, and so the board is moving forward through. Yeah, that makes
Right.
sense.
Yeah. So if I'm training hard paddleboarding, I kind of feel it from the neck down.
Just that part of the body, below the neck.
Yeah.
Is that something you feel while you're doing it, or is it something you feel the next day?
Yeah, where do you get sore?
Both. And I tend to get sore probably more in my lats, so like upper back on the outside. And because that really should be where you're initiating your stroke pull, and kind of like low back, just from all the hinging.
And if you've got bad posture and you're doing it wrong, then there could be any number of places that would show up as trouble.
Yeah, I mean, it'll certainly, stroke technique makes a huge difference in how efficient you are, and certainly when you're going to hurt yourself or not.
Yeah, okay. And going the other way with the professional overlap, as you get to know people and get involved with different communities, is that you're spending time together doing hard things and talking about different stuff. You can't hide that you're a financial advisor. Eventually that's going to come out. Are there people that you've been able to bring into the world of good financial advisory space through this, or would that be something that, oh, I see it?
Here's Kitty Cat. That's Lizzie.
Okay.
No, so I haven't brought any clients on board from paddleboarding, but I feel like I should have done a good play on words there. Gotta work on that.
We'll run that again.
Yeah, it's certainly the type of community where I think all of us want to just be out in our community in general and getting to know people and letting people know us and the type of person we are, and that we are likable and trustable and have integrity. So, certainly from that perspective, it introduces me to more people that I might not have known otherwise.
Yeah, that makes sense. Are there any lessons that you've been able to draw from from what you've learned at paddleboarding that would be applicable into the financial advisory space?
So I would say sort of general life lessons, or taking on any kind of challenge, really. One would be willing to fall in the water. So, we have to take risks and try things, and we're not going to get it right the first time. So just kind of be willing to not be good at it at first and keep going, and you will get better.
Yeah, it's sort of a marketplace. If you're going to be doing something that's going to have long-term rewards, there's going to be some setbacks along the way.
Right. Understanding what conditions are. So not going out blindly without checking weather reports, and, checking in with peers or family, for more of a safety standpoint of letting them know where you are. I think having, the translation to financial advising being, understand your environment, the economic environment, as well as like what your client's going through, and communicate.
Yeah. I meant to ask this earlier. Is it a year-round activity?
Oh gosh, for some people it is. Okay. I was telling a friend of mine recently that I've become a fair weather paddler. I if it's too hot, I just don't want to deal So,
Oh, yeah. I was
but
thinking
there
you put on a
are
wetsuit to stay warm, but then that's extra
no, there are
mass, and that's
no,
a
there
pain in the
are
neck.
people who will
Chip away the ice.
wear wetsuits and dry suits to pretty much here, even paddle year round. I am not there. But I have a couple of friends who they'll do like a New Year's Day paddle and kind of greet the new year in that way. But yeah, you definitely have to, the water's really cold at that point. So if you combine, oh, here's a little metric for you. For being without a wetsuit, you want the combined water and air temperature to be, oh shoot, now I'm going to forget the number. I think it's over 100
Yeah.
for the two combined temperatures, and underneath that, whatever that marker is, it's,
Whatever that threshold is, you need to gear
yeah,
up
it's a
in order to.
hypothermia. Because it's not just like, oh, my skin got wet. It could be submersive, and
Yeah.
that's problematic. So,
And what's
but
your
yeah, there are
sunscreen?
people who go year round. Oh yeah, sunscreen.
Yeah, wait, so you're on the water, it's reflective, so it's as much underneath as it is coming down on you, right? Because you get
Yeah,
it
and
both
a
ways.
lot of people wear sun protective clothing too. Hats, sunglasses, the whole bit.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. If somebody was thinking that they're hearing what you're saying, they like the sound of a full body workout, cardio, low impact, community, outdoors, and we're interested in getting started, getting their feet wet, how would they go about doing that?
So a couple of places I would recommend people start. One is if there's some sort of paddle shop or like a group that rents out paddle vessels. Start with them. They almost always have some kind of lessons or sort of intro, and a more of a retail location. They can do a lot of talking to you about gear. And in my experience, everyone in this community is super friendly and open and welcoming to new participants in the sport. You know, we all love it and want other people to love it. So definitely don't be afraid to ask questions and look like a newbie. The other place to look is through social media. There may be other places to look, but Facebook, I know it's a great place. There's lots of, at least in my area, lots of groups of just people trying to figure out where to go paddling, and they'll ask all kinds of all kinds of questions about conditions that people are familiar with, or where to launch, or what might be good gear for a family or a vacation spot, for paddling. So kind of using the power of the hive brain.
Sure.
to,
You mentioned you follow somebody in Oregon. Is this the sort of thing that people would stream? Is there a Twitch community for paddleboarding?
Oh, I have no idea.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Well, you mentioned, vacationing. Is this something you would encourage people, like, when next time you're like, we're Midwestern kids, so it's like, we go to Florida on vacation. Like, I think of places like, oh yeah, there's that place you can rent kayaks and things. Like, are those the type of places that rent paddleboards? Is this an activity that someone who's never done it, that's just sort of curious, could try over a vacation or spring break or
Yeah,
something?
definitely. Definitely. And, it's not like you have to stand. If you're feeling uncomfortable balance wise, you can stay on your knees or even sit on your bottom. You won't be fast, but that's okay. But yeah, I have a friend who just went to the Grand Canyon, and she paddleboarded at, I believe, Lake Powell in Arizona. So she kind of has the goal of paddling in every state. So,
Okay.
yeah, it's definitely something you can look up, and there's generally some kind of
You can organize a
package
meetup
for newbies.
FPA in Columbus and then XY in Minneapolis. There'll be the paddleboarding group out on.
There you go. I would love
Where does
that.
paddleboard? Where does that fall in the importance of what you're looking for when you go on vacation?
I generally want to vacation in a water oriented spot. Um, I wouldn't say that it is the top priority for all travel, but I'm looking for it wherever I go.
I've had breakfast with a guy who's into scuba, and he talked about, yeah, we went to Mexico. The water was clear. We're going to Seattle. The water's terrible, but there's shipwrecks. Are there destinations? Like, do you have a dream that one day I'm going to paddleboard the Great Barrier Reef, or is it not that kind of activity?
No, I think there are. So for example, a month or so ago, I did a combined paddleboard and yoga retreat at near Assateague National Park, which is in
With the
Maryland.
ponies, right?
Yep. So there's the ocean side of the park and the marshy side of the park. And well, the horses are on both, but we paddled in the on the marshy side, and it's shallow enough that there aren't really power boats going in there. So it felt like we had our own little private horse safari out there. We were like really close to them, and there wasn't we were pretty much it, our small group. So that was really cool. I can't think of any. There probably are more sort of international, big paddle destinations. But I think that, the coasts of the U.S. are pretty big. I think Australia would be amazing. I want to say there was a big international competition in Brazil not too long ago. I don't really follow the pro stuff too much, so. But there definitely are destination spots. Hawaii. I think anywhere where there's scenic water, anything, would likely be a good place to try paddleboarding and experience an area from a different standpoint. And actually, that kind of brings me back to the question about lessons for financial advising. I think one of the things I've enjoyed most about paddleboarding is this shift of perspective where I'm suddenly thinking about how to get somewhere based on how I would do that by water versus how I would do that by roads. And so I think that's a kind of a good exercise for financial advisors to, if we're considering what might be done for a client, or how to figure out the best outcome for them, to be able to shift perspectives and not only approach a problem in a certain way, but to be able to completely shift the way you're viewing it.
Yeah. Is there anybody that commutes to work by paddleboard? Like you guys, Baltimore lost the bridge. Was there anybody that thought, I can get across this. I don't have to go through the tunnel or around the bay. I'll just take my paddleboard across the way.
Not that I know of. So the gym that I go to, I did see one of my fellow gym mates. She brought her kayak across the water to go to the gym one day. So, it's definitely
a workout to get to your workout.
Yeah, exactly. But there's the way sort of the geographic shape of the area is, there's the Chesapeake Bay, but there's all these rivers and creeks that lead into it. So there's all these little land peninsulas. So a lot of times I look at going somewhere, I'm like, I could paddle there faster than I could drive. Because you have to go in, up the peninsula, and then up, and then down the next peninsula. Yeah. Whereas, if I'm just going across the water, it wouldn't take me as long.
Sure.
Theoretically, it's shorter anyway, right?
If you're willing to arrive, wet. So if somebody wanted to learn more about some of the missions and organizations that you're a part of and the work that you do, where would they go to find some of those?
Sure. So I mentioned Team Red, White, and Blue, and I believe the URL is teamrwb.org.
Okay.
And that's a veteran service organization there around the country and around the world. There are different chapters. And they do all kinds of, not just paddleboarding. It sort of depends on what is
Geography. What's big?
Yeah, exactly. But that's a great organization for anyone to be involved in, to really connect, and have some shared mission of just self-improvement, essentially.
Sure.
And then more locally, Live Water Foundation is the group I mentioned that connects veterans and underserved youth with paddling and water safety. And oh gosh, I should know the URL. I believe it's livewaterfoundation.org or lwf.org.
Google will get us there.
Yes, Google
Live Water.
will get you there.
And if somebody wanted to find out more about you professionally and the work that you do and the niche that you serve, where would they find you for your day job?
Sure. My day job, my URL is thepearlfp.com. And I primarily work from home, which is where I am right now, but I also have an office in downtown Annapolis. So able to meet with clients there, but also work virtually as well. So
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for sharing your time with us and giving us a picture into something that neither of us knew. I'm assuming neither of us knew anything about it. So thank you for the good content today.
Yeah, this
yeah,
has been,
thank you.
this
Thank
has
you.
been
This was
great.
fun.
I'm now going to look past the kayaks when we're on vacation and look for the paddle boards, and I'm going to get one, and we're going to try it.
Yeah, please
Your sister's
do.
down on the coast.
Let me know how it goes.
Yeah. My sister's down in Florida, so
Do they do aquatic stuff?
Yeah, they're water people. They're in a boat club. I didn't know a boat club was a thing.
I'm
Yeah.
sure she'll know where to go.
Yes, we're going to try it. No, this is great. Thank you so much
Awesome.
for coming on. It's great talking with you about this, and this is cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Unexpected Hobbies of Financial Advisors is brought to you by Fiduciary CFO, forward-thinking tax and planning solutions for business owners, like RIA firms and their business owner clientele. The opinions of Brian, Joshua, and their guests are for entertainment purposes and should not be construed as legal, tax, financial, or investment advice. You should know better than to take any of this content seriously. Thanks for being a fan of the show. If you were listening and thought to yourself, hey, I know somebody they need to have on the show, you can do something about that. Go to unexpectedhobbies.com/nominate and tell us who they are and what they do that's so interesting and unexpected. If we agree, we'll send them an invitation and we'll hope they say yes. Now it's unexpectedhobbies.com/nominate.